guys, we announced a few weeks ago, when I was about 13 weeks pregnant that we were expecting. I am actually 16 weeks today, so it's been almost a month since we have announced our surprise miracle pregnancy, and it's taken me this long to sit down. I just have so much to say that I don't even know where to start, and so it made me kind of just avoid the subject altogether. But you guys are asking me pretty much every single day. It's definitely going to be two parts. So the first part is going to be talking about my previous fertility issues. If you guys happen to be new here, I figured I'd get you caught up. And I've just been getting a lot of questions about our fertility issues and how we got pregnant, how we found out. And so that is what today's video is going to be. And then I will do a second video kind of catching you guys up on the pregnancy. So far, we had a lot of complications in the beginning. So I'll talk more about all of that stuff in this second part of the video. So we've had about a 13-year infertility journey. My husband and I have been married for 13 years. Really, we didn't start trying to get pregnant until a few years into being married. We got married at 18 and 19. And so we weren't necessarily trying to get pregnant right in the beginning, but we also weren't doing anything to prevent getting pregnant. But then a few years in, we started trying to get pregnant, and I just kept getting diagnosed with fertility issue after fertility issue after fertility issue. Also, I got diagnosed with a lot of health issues. So when I was 15, I was diagnosed with lupus. And then when I was 18, shortly after getting married, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And then when I was about 19, I was diagnosed with PCOS. So my doctor told us that when it came time to start trying to get pregnant, that I would probably just have to take a pill and I would be fine. I also got diagnosed with low thyroid during that same time. And so she was also mentioning that my low thyroid could cause infertility. It kind of messes with your cycles and things like that. Then a few years into our infertility journey, I started having a lot of weird cramping and really irregular bleeding. And then at that point, I got diagnosed with uterine polyps, which can cause infertility, and also probable endometriosis. I haven't had the surgery. Basically, to diagnose endometriosis, you have to get a surgery. I haven't had the surgery, but I have all of the symptoms. My doctor has told me that I most likely have it. I had my YouTube channel by that point, and I had documented some of the surgeries. I had multiple surgeries for the uterine polyps. They just kept growing back. My uterus was just like lined with polyps, which can make it hard to get pregnant because it can interfere with implantation, of course. And then endometriosis, I think I heard it's one of the leading causes of infertility is PCOS and endometriosis. Around that time, like maybe a few months to a year later, I got diagnosed with a blood clotting disorder, which just happened to get caught in my blood work that my lupus doctor was actually taking. And she had known that we had been, at that point, we had been trying to get pregnant for like 7 years. And she said, hey, I found this blood clotting disorder in your blood work. This is probably why you guys haven't gotten pregnant. I think that she had had the same disorder, which is why she knew so much about it. And if you have that blood clotting disorder, it causes frequent miscarriages. What is crazy about the blood clotting disorder is that you pretty much just have to take baby aspirin to fix it. And so if you have this blood clotting disorder and you're having frequent miscarriages, you can just take baby aspirin and it'll probably fix the problem enough to where you're able to hold the pregnancy and not miscarry. And there were some times where I thought that we were having miscarriages. Now that I am looking back on it, I'm pretty like 99% sure that we've had 2 miscarriages. So I got put on baby aspirin. Okay, so what is that number? Lupus, which can cause infertility because your lupus can actually attack the pregnancy. Low thyroid, PCOS, blood clotting disorder, uterine polyps, and endometriosis. So that's 6. And then through this whole finding out that we were pregnant and going and getting a million ultrasounds to see if the pregnancy was viable, I also found out that I have a deviated uterus. I don't have a severe one, but it is definitely, it's kind of like heart-shaped when it's not supposed to be heart-shaped. And that can cause infertility. Typically, if you have a deviated uterus, you can get a surgery to correct it, and that will help a lot of couples who haven't been able to get pregnant to be able to get pregnant after they've had that surgery. But a lot of times couples will find out that they have a deviated uterus after they've had a miscarriage or two. So that is seven infertility issues that we have ran into over the past 13 years. So about 11 years into our infertility journey, we had decided to adopt. So up until that point, we had been on a few different fertility drugs, and we had seen fertility doctors, but we were kind of doing things mostly the old-fashioned way. And we had IVF. I get a lot of questions about this, so I figured I'd address it in this video, like a lot of questions asking why we never did IVF and things like that. So we always had IVF on the table. We also always had adoption on the table. But in our minds, we kind of wanted to unturn every stone before we decided to adopt. We wanted to know that we tried everything at least once and nothing worked, and so now we will move on to adoption. So we kept trying to do things like IUI or IVF, and it kept feeling like we were hitting a wall with it. It made me feel sick to my stomach, kind of. It made me feel like we were going against the current. Like it didn't feel meant to be for us. It didn't feel like it was a part of our journey, which was really confusing because we wanted to be parents so badly, and those were the obvious next steps. So we kind of kept putting it off. Joe was feeling the same way. And then literally one day, I remember the day, I remember what I was doing. It was literally a moment that happened where I just had the strongest impression that we needed to adopt, that we needed to let go of all of our fertility stuff. We needed to let go of IVF. We actually had an appointment booked to go see the IVF doctor. Like I was forcing myself to do it. And I just had this feeling like we needed to cancel that appointment and we needed to start the adoption process like tomorrow, like now. And so I immediately went downstairs to Joe, and I was kind of nervous because that was our plan, was to unturn every stone first. And I told him what I was feeling, and he said, I feel the same exact way. I just feel like we're meant to adopt, and I feel like the time is now for us to adopt. So we really decided at that point to close the fertility, trying to get pregnant, TTC journey door and go towards adoption. And we jumped into our adoption journey with so much hope. We both just knew that our adoption journey was going to end with a baby and that we were finally going to be a family. And it was just a couple of months later that we found out about Harper. So Harper is 2 now, and we have just had the most amazing past 2 years with her and being parents, and so many dreams have come true. So then fast forward, about last summer, we told ourselves that when Harper was about a year old, we would start the process again. So that was our plan. And a really strange thing happened. We kept putting it off, and it wasn't because we didn't want a second baby. Like, we talked about it all of the time. We were so excited for Harper to be a big sister. It kind of felt, and I had made this aha moment, the second round of the adoption process kind of felt how IVF felt in the beginning. My heart wanted to do it and my mind wanted to do it, but for some reason my gut didn't want to do it. Like, for some reason it just felt like it was going against the grain and it wasn't our plan. Whereas the first time, adoption felt so right to us. And then in about January, and this is a part of the story that might sound so weird, But we're definitely like religious people, so we do a lot of praying, and we feel like, you know, we receive answers to our prayers. And so this next part was very, very guided. So like, it's so crazy to look back on, and it reminds me so much of our adoption journey, because our adoption journey was so guided. And then this time around, it was the same exact thing that was happening. So, which I don't think I've said that thing yet. So around January of this year, January 2018, I started getting the feeling that we were gonna get pregnant. And I fought it. For me, when we decided to adopt, I shut that door, and I was excited and happy to grow our family through adoption. And so I just had these promptings that we were going to get pregnant. But in order for us to get pregnant, there were some things that needed to happen. Like, I was on a medication that causes miscarriages. And if it doesn't cause a miscarriage, like, it'll most likely cause you to miscarry. But if it doesn't cause you to miscarry, it's pretty certain that your baby would have some pretty severe birth defects. And so I was on that medication because of my lupus and my arthritis. And so I was really getting like a kick in my gut that I needed to stop that medication. And then I also was feeling the really strong urge that I needed to start up the baby aspirin. We weren't trying to get pregnant, but I was kind of prepping my body for a pregnancy in case it happened, because I just had a feeling that it was going to happen. But other than that, we weren't trying to get pregnant. My last cycle that I had was in January. Because of my PCOS, I don't have regular cycles. And so I hadn't had a cycle in 6+ months at that point. And so because of that, like, I couldn't track ovulation or anything like that. And then in the beginning of July, I started to feel some symptoms. And then another brief, quick history. My body, I think because of the PCOS, likes to fake pregnancies all of the time. Throughout the years, I have taken so many pregnancy tests, and I have had so many pregnancy symptoms, like tender boobs, morning sickness. There was a time for like a month or two straight, I would wake up between like 3 and 5 a.m. and just be throwing up for no reason. And I would take pregnancy tests after pregnancy tests, and it was always negative. So I started having symptoms. So in my mind, I'm like, I know that it's gonna be negative. I know that it's just my body messing with me again. But I also can't think about anything else until I've taken the stupid pregnancy test. So I had Joe pick up a pregnancy test. And so he bought a 3-pack. So I was gonna wait until the morning to take it, because that's what they tell you to do. But I was like, I had to pee when he came home. And so I was like, I have a 3-pack, so I'll just take, like, I have 3 to spare. So I'll just take one of them right now, and if it comes out negative, I'll take another one in the morning. I've heard so many women say that when they would pee on the test and they were pregnant, that it would immediately turn, like, as you see the urine going, sorry if this is graphic, across the window, like, boom, you see 2 lines pop up. I was taking the test, and I saw 1 line pop up, and I didn't see the other line, and so I was like, hey, I'm not pregnant. So I put it on the floor, continued my business, and then I was like, oh, I should pick up this pregnancy test off the floor and, you know, throw it away. So I went to go pick up the pregnancy test, and there's 2 lines. And which is crazy now. The line that I saw was actually the pregnancy line, and it took a minute for the control line to pop up. And I didn't realize that until I took another pregnancy test, because you can still see in my original pregnancy test, which is right here, that the control line is lighter than the actual pregnant line. And so the pregnant line was the first line that I saw, but I thought it was a control line. And so yeah, I just picked it up off the floor and saw that there were 2 lines. And it's one of those things that as a YouTuber, you should have recorded your reaction. But I think it's one of those things that even if I had recorded it, I probably wouldn't have posted it, because I had no reaction. Like, I saw the 2 lines and I had no reaction. I didn't gasp, I didn't cry, I didn't smile. And then I immediately went into YouTuber mode because I was like, crap, I didn't get my reaction. And then I was like, I need to get Joe's reaction. So at this point, something kicks in and I'm shaking. And I look like trash. So I was like, well, if I get his reaction, I'll probably be on there too. So I should spruce up a little bit. So I like went to the mirror and like tried sprucing up. And then I was like, crap, the camera isn't in here, it's in the kitchen. And Joe was in the kitchen. And I'm like, I need to breeze by Joe, grab the camera, and then come back in here with the test and call him in and get his reaction. So I walk over to the side table to place the pregnancy test there so I can go grab the camera, and Joe walks in the bedroom. And I just lost it. I always thought that like when I found out that I was pregnant, like I'd be able to keep it from Joe for like a day or two while I came up with some cute little way to surprise them, or wait. Like there were so many times where I thought I was pregnant like around Valentine's Day or his birthday or Christmas, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait until Christmas and show it to him. No. Now I know that I would have never been able to keep that from him, because as soon as he walked in the door, I lost it. And I grabbed the pregnancy test and all I said was, it's always negative. And so he thought that I was upset that it was negative because I said it's always negative. So he was just like, oh honey, like trying to, you know, console me. So then I hand him this test and he's thinking that he's going to see a negative pregnancy test and that that's why I'm crying. And he sees 2 lines and he knows how pregnancy tests work. Like he knows that 2 lines mean pregnant. And he was stone cold. Like we both had the same exact reaction of no reaction. So if I had filmed that whole thing, it would have been the weirdest thing to watch.
I need a hug yet.
I'm on. Guys, I don't know if this is real or what. I feel like it's fake. But there's actually 2 lines.
We're pregnant!
I don't know that we are.
Yeah, Brittany, this is real. Like that's not a joke. There's 2 lines.
I feel like it's always negative. I don't know. Anywho, there's that.
And then I got really angry. So my reaction was no reaction and then straight into anger, because I realized that we weren't pregnant and that this was just my body taking it to a whole nother level of messing with me and giving me a positive pregnancy test when we weren't actually pregnant. This was just my body playing the meanest joke on me ever, because I thought of all of the years that I had every single pregnancy symptom all at the same time and we were never pregnant. We just got negative test after negative test, and my body has just betrayed me in so many ways over the past 13 years. And this was just it taking it to like the final level of, I'm gonna give you a positive pregnancy test and I'm gonna get your hopes up and I'm gonna give this to you, but it's all fake and you're not actually pregnant. And even though I had the feeling that we were going to get pregnant, those thoughts and memories really left my mind during that whole time. I was just so scarred from the 13 years of it always being negative that my thoughts and emotions just went right back to that. So my husband, thankfully, went into, you know, let's figure things out mode. And he knew that I hadn't had a cycle in 6+ months. He knew I hadn't had a cycle since January. And so he immediately called the doctor and was trying to get me in for an ultrasound that day because we needed to see how far along I was. So we went to the ultrasound the next day, and at that point I had started kind of, you know, remembering, you know, hey, I kind of felt like this was going to happen. Maybe this actually is happening for us after 13 years. We get to the ultrasound and they see a little black dot. There's no yolk sac or anything like that. It's just a little black dot. And I think because they didn't have a cycle to go on, they were really confused, because basically they said that I was measuring at 5 weeks, which Joe and I don't know if this is TMI, but we had kind of done the math on like possible times that we could have gotten pregnant. And one of them was Father's Day. And so when they said 5 weeks, Joe like immediately pulled out the calendar, and it matched up. It was 5 weeks and 2 days, and 5 weeks and 2 days matched up like perfectly to the day with Father's Day. And so they said 5 weeks, and Joe said, oh, well, we thought that we could have conceived on Father's Day, and so that matches up. And so he was like, so it's measuring at 5 weeks, so everything looks good for a 5-week-old pregnancy. And they said, yeah, but if you're 8 weeks, it doesn't look good. If you're 8 weeks and this is what you're looking like, it means that you're gonna have a miscarriage. So they weren't like clapping their hands and saying, you're 5 weeks pregnant. They were saying, there's a black dot in there. And it could be that you're 5 weeks and everything's fine. It could be that you're 8 weeks and you're gonna miscarry. Or they said, this could be a cyst and this isn't a pregnancy. And then they were saying, if you've had a positive pregnancy test, and they would say that like questioning it. They were like, if you've really had a positive pregnancy test, and this is a cyst, then that means that you have a pregnancy somewhere else, probably a fallopian tube, and it's too small for us to see it. And then, on top of that, they said the pregnancy isn't really in a good spot. And they said, we can't tell if it's in the uterus or if it's an ectopic pregnancy. So then there was the fifth option. It could also be that you're 5 weeks pregnant, but it's an ectopic pregnancy. So we were just so confused, like completely not knowing if we were pregnant. There were 5 different options. Only one of them was a good option. And the rest of the 4 were bad options, not a viable pregnancy. So we left that appointment just being really confused. And then on top of that, we were getting my blood work done, and my HCG levels weren't rising. So all signs were kind of pointing to miscarriage. And I think that's a pretty good cliffhanger to leave it there. Obviously you guys know that I didn't miscarry, but there were several weeks of a whole lot of ups and downs. And so I think that I will leave that for the next video, kind of talking about our beginning journey of the pregnancy and the complications that we were having and the symptoms that I was having and all of that fun jazz. But that is a very long story of our past fertility issues and how we found out that we were pregnant. It definitely was not how I ever imagined it would go down. I always thought that when I took a pregnancy test and saw it be positive, that I would be jumping up and down and so joyful, and that I would surprise Joe. And in the end, this pregnancy has been nothing like I always imagined a pregnancy would be. But we are so grateful, so extremely grateful for this pregnancy. We're so excited. We just never ever thought that we would get to experience this, and here we are, a complete surprise miracle, and we are just over the moon with excitement. So with that, I will wait for the next video. But thank you guys so much for all of your love and support, and just how excited you guys have been for us. We're really excited to share this journey with you guys. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.